Without a doubt, Blade Runner is one of the most striking films of its era, and it's one of my favourite films of all time. It's littered with symbolism, but one aspect that I think is worth discussion is the use of the eye motif. Now, it's no coincidence that one of the first things we see in the movie is a gargantuan eye, filling up the frame and reflecting the almost apocalyptic city back onto us. Ridley Scott uses the image, and more importantly, the idea of the human eye to convey many of the thought-provoking and important themes inside this text. But how does he do this? And why? In the world of people who analyse and study art, Blade Runner is admittedly somewhat of an old hat, and I'm not here to make a definitive argument on what the entire film actually meant. It's been said that eyes are the windows to the soul, and I believe that many of the techniques used in Blade Runner boil down to this concept. How much of that statement you choose to believe is irrelevant, but we know from psychology, the study of the human mind, that a great deal of information is conveyed through our eyes. Excitement, fear, rage, lust, the list of emotions that we can convey through these tiny bowls of fluid seems to be endless. Blade Runner tells the story of 6 replicants, which are a kind of android, that escape from slavery off-world and come to Earth. Our protagonist, Rick Deckard, is a Blade Runner, and it's his job to hunt down these rogue machines and retire them. Now, I don't think anyone believes it's a coincidence how the Voight comfort test is performed. A camera is focused on the suspect's eyes as they are read a series of emotionally charged phrases, while the Blade Runner watches for involuntary emotional responses. Like I said earlier, a great deal of information can be gained by studying our eyes. According to an article that I found that was published on Psychology Today by Dr. David Ludden, many different kinds of cues can be taken from just the dilation of the pupils. Our eyes tend to respond accordingly when we look at something exciting, dangerous, or even arousing. It's a kind of primal instinct that can't be faked by any small means. Now, using this knowledge, the Voight comfort test in the film is a completely logical step to take in determining someone's humanity. It's something that, for the average person, is rarely ever consciously considered. This means that replicating this kind of effect is no easy task. You'll notice that for the replicant characters, Rachel and Deckard included, there almost seems to be something off about their eyes. Not only do they have those golden reflections, but their expressions, the way that they look at things, is ever so slightly wrong. Now, it seems that this secret of eyes being the key to it all is understood by the antagonist, Roy Batty. When he begins the search for his maker, his first stop is to Hannibal Chew, the man who actually designed his eyes. Roy even has a little joke here, saying,
"If only you could see what I've seen with your eyes."
Roy later refers to the amazing things he's witnessed with those eyes, but here it's as if he's laughing at the situation. He seems to find humour in the absurdity, that eyes are so essential to making us human, and yet he's seen such awesome sights with artificial ones. Now, Roy of course considers himself as worthy of life as any human, and so this ironic juxtaposition is particularly funny to him. Chew sees the eyes as a simple item that he creates, but Batty understands that they allow one to experience life. Through his eyes, he has created memories, therefore justifying his own existence. And I believe that Roy's apparent bemusement comes from the fact that, in this scenario, he is the one acting more human than Chew, who's just making a thing. Let's talk about when Deckard kills Zora. Here's how the scene plays out. Realizing she's in danger, Zora flees. Deckard chases her down and eventually shoots her in the back as she desperately sprints for freedom. The interesting thing about this scene is Zora's reflections as she's running past the glass. The reflection of her is her human appearance. People who simply look at that surface level will easily mistake her for one of them. But when Rick Deckard, replicant killer, shoots her down, she crashes through the glass, shattering the reflection and revealing her true nature. When they're identified as machines, the replicants have their lives, both literally and metaphorically, stripped away from them as they are retired. And look at the placement in this scene. Rick Deckard, an agent of the establishment that decides who does and does not deserve to live, is shooting someone in the back as they flee to freedom. This woman, Zora, who is perceived as being a lower class of life form, crashes helplessly through the glass, flailing almost pathetically as she dies. It's impossible for us as audience members to not feel at least a little sympathy for her, if not empathy. Blade Runner deals with many issues about classism and elite culture, far too many to truly go into depth about now. But there is one interesting point which relates to Dr. Eldon Tyrell. In this text, nothing is by accident. The massive, 700-storied pyramid that Tyrell creates his company in dominates the city. It is clear from this and the excessive wealth and size of his office that he is a powerful man in LA. And indeed, he's incredibly rich and can create life out of nothing. To an outsider, he would be imagined as a strong man. But look at the glasses that he wears. Not only do they obscure his eyes to some degree, indicating that his motives are false, but they are almost comically oversized. His eyes, the core of his humanity, are weak. And this is not to say that Ridley Scott believes people who wear glasses to be weak, but it's part of the language of the text. His actions are not to be considered humane. He gives the creature life, selling it as a slave, and then destroying it when it tries to live. When Roy Batty finally makes it to Tyrell's home, he sees the man's very existence as a lie. Why should this cruel and heartless creature deserve to live a proper life free from persecution when he cannot? His eyes, the very essence of his humanity, are an insult to everything that Roy believes in, and therefore, the only appropriate way to destroy him is by crushing them. In Roy's final speech, an incredibly famous scene that constantly has its meaning debated, he says this:
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched sea beams
Glitter in the dark near the 10-house gate. All those moments will be lost in time. Like tears in rain.
In this moment, Roy has accepted his death. He knows it's over, and in one final moment of emotional empathy, he tries to make Deckard understand. Or at least, that's what I believe. He's explaining himself, claiming his own life as something that matters. The things that he's done have impact on the world, and the fact that they are lost is a tragedy. The symbolism of Blade Runner is seemingly endless, and people will search for meaning within it for decades. William Gibson's novel, Neuromancer, is a favourite of mine, but with both that book and this film, an entire subgenre of style was born. This is where cyberpunk really began, a huge genre that is still alive today. Blade Runner wasn't fully appreciated at its time of release, but nonetheless it's grown stronger over time into a true artistic icon that with any luck will be appreciated forever.